Saxophone players, does your band director do this to you? Would you like to be able to play better in tune? Would you like your low register to be more responsive? And would you like to eventually be able to play in the altissimo register of the instrument? If you have answered yes to any of these questions, you need to understand something about voicing on the saxophone. Well, what do we mean by voicing? So what good voicing skills will do for you as a saxophone player is they will help your tone quality quite a lot. They will help you learn how to play the low register of the instrument a lot more easily with a lot better response. Of course, it will help you learn how to be more flexible with your intonation, especially in the extreme part of the instrument where it is not naturally in tune and you have to learn how to adjust it. And then, of course, it is laying the groundwork for you on being able to play in the altissimo register. So the way that we really address this as a saxophone player is not unlike what you see with some of your brass player friends in band doing, where they have to learn how to play just on the mouthpiece of the instrument. That's a very important skill for them to learn because what it means to their control of the brass instrument. So we have to do those things too with just the mouthpiece of the saxophone. Now, right away that does present some challenges. Because it's so small, it's really quite short, it's very unstable. And right away, if you've tried this, you might recognize that there are all kinds of problems that could happen. So let's just talk about a couple really quick things about how to address playing the instrument and getting a tone and what you have to look out for when you're playing only on the mouthpiece. So one thing that you've probably begun learning already is just the amount of reed you have in your mouth is so crucial. There's the point at which what we call the fulcrum of the reed and the mouthpiece, where those two are in contact with each other and then the reed and the mouthpiece go away from each other. You need to have that much mouthpiece in your mouth and that much reed able to vibrate. So you can slip a business card or an index card or something, or even a couple pieces of paper, slip that between the reed and the mouthpiece, and you could see about where that fulcrum is. And that's approximately where you should put pressure on the reed, right here. If you have too little reed and mouthpiece in your mouth, you're not going to be able to get a full, rich tone on the instrument, and of course, on the mouthpiece by itself. Another thing to remind you about with the embouchure is keep in mind what your jaw is designed to do. It is not designed to play saxophone. It is designed to crush things. And the reed is flexible and your jaw can crush it against the mouthpiece. So we have to do little things in the act of playing a single reed instrument to apply pressure to the reed so that it can vibrate, but we don't want to do too much. So a positive activity you can do is trying to round your embouchure. Try to get as much ooh quality as possible. You need to engage the sides of your mouth in somewhat of a forward ooh quality. You want your top lip to be very engaged in the act of playing your instrument. I'm thinking down to the mouthpiece and into my teeth. Feel like you're pulling your teeth back into your mouth. Those things help engage these muscles in a good, productive way. So lots of forward ooh quality. Your bottom lip, right here, I like to think about my bottom lip being a little more in front of my teeth than over my teeth. Now, don't get me wrong, you do want your bottom lip to cover the cutting edge of your teeth, but you don't want too much of that. If you pull too much lip over your teeth, you will lose all the control of the muscles around here, and you need a lot of control of the muscles. So think about being a little more in front of your teeth, and if you say "foo" and let your lips stick forward a little bit, "foo," and kind of exaggerate it. Do it in front of the mirror, crack yourself up, make your friends laugh. "Foo." It's spelled approximately F-U-H. "Foo." think about a forward quality in your bottom lip, and you do want some cushy, soft qualities of your lip under that reed. And last but not least, when we're playing only on the mouthpiece, we don't need to overdo it with our air. If you can just think about exhaling with your air, you don't need to blow really hard or really fast. Just think about exhaling. And something I do for this is I like to think about managing my air in what I call using my shh muscles. So everybody right now, take a breath, a big breath, and then do a long, slow shh, as if you're trying to shush somebody clear across the library because you were trying to do your work there during study hall and they are not. And you need to get your work done. So let's all shh together. Ready? Okay, what did you feel? Hopefully you felt down here around your stomach and waist area, you felt a downward and outward push with your muscles. And so what I'm doing there is I'm not working really, really hard. I'm not trying to blow really hard, but what I am doing by engaging those muscles is I am keeping the diaphragm muscle from returning to its natural upward state. I'm controlling that a little bit more. The diaphragm is going to do what it needs to do, which is you breathe in, it goes down, and then it gradually comes back up to move air out of your lungs. But if you can engage your shh muscles a little bit more, that will keep that diaphragm from returning to that upward position as quickly as it wants to. And by doing that, you will control your air in a nice, healthy way. And again, I think of it a little more like exhaling rather than blowing. All right, we've talked about some of the variables with playing on just the mouthpiece by itself. Let's give it a try here. We've moved over to the piano keyboard. Now, if you don't have access to a keyboard of some kind, couple options you could have. Maybe you start with playing top line F sharp on your alto saxophone. That is the pitch that we're going to be shooting for, which is a concert A. So you could play that and keep that stuck in your ear to the best of your ability and try to work on matching it from there. That might be a little cumbersome if you have to go back and forth to the instrument to double check. But again, if that's what you've got, that's what you've got. Maybe some of one of the tuners you use, if it can generate a pitch, that will be perfect. That will work just fine. The easiest, most efficient way, of course, is to have access to a keyboard. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to just see if I can play that and get it going. And it's never a beautiful sound because it's such a tiny instrument at this point. But let's give it a shot. So I want to hit this. Okay, so I'm trying to do all the things we just talked about to make this work. I'm trying to make sure I have enough mouthpiece and reed in my mouth. I'm trying to keep the same angle. And because I am also a clarinetist, that can be a challenge sometimes. I want to make it a little more clarinet angle, but I have to try really hard to say, okay, this is what it feels like to put a saxophone in my mouth, so I'm trying to keep that angle. I'm trying to make sure there's enough reed in my mouth that's available to vibrate. I'm trying to make sure that I'm using all of my muscles in a consistent way, lots of ooh, a little bit of foo with my bottom lip, and I'm exhaling into that mouthpiece. And I'm trying to just create steadiness. I don't want it to be bouncing all over the place. If I looked at my tuner right now, I would want my tuner needle, I'm using an old style tuner that has a needle on it. I don't want it to be flailing around right there. I want it to be as steady as possible. And with the mouthpiece, that is a challenge. I'm not expecting it to be perfect and not move at all, but I'm going to try anyway. Okay, so things that you might encounter. If your pitch is not the A, I find that a majority of students who try this for the first time are going to be higher than the A. They might be up there. They might even be up there. And so we have to find ways to bring it down. So some of the things that will immediately help, you need to think about your tongue being something like a downward ramp inside your mouth. If you say er, or ing, ing, those two things, they put your tongue approximately in the place it needs to be, in this downward ramp. Ing. That downward ramp, it's like it creates this little smaller opening at the back of your tongue, between your throat and your tongue. And then it helps find some flexibility in the middle and front of your mouth that you have to work with. Those two things combined can help you find the pitch a little more easily. So that's the first thing that you can experiment with. The other things that we of course talked about, the pressure on the reed. You might find that you are getting your tongue in that downward ramp position, but you're still too high. Experiment with the pressure on the reed. If you are squeezing this reed too hard, it will not be able to vibrate quite the way that it needs to. You might be really, really tense back here in your throat. Like if there's a sensation of like you're choking things off. So the tongue is creating, the back of the tongue is creating the smaller space we're working with. It won't come from right here in your throat. So that can be something else that can get in the way of bringing your pitch down. For those of you who might be too low underneath that pitch, you're not there, maybe you're there or there, and we need to get up here to A. If you're too low, that can tell you that your embouchure is too loose, that you are not putting adequate pressure on the reed. It might mean that your tongue in general is too low. When I talk about you might have too much of the back of the tongue too low as well. So you can experiment. And I think I better make one really quick reminder here. This exercise is really geared towards classical equipment, classical bass mouthpieces. Jazz mouthpieces are designed for some different things, and I don't think that this will apply exactly. You will be developing, if you're working on a classical mouthpiece, you will be developing controls that you can translate directly to jazz equipment. But right now, what I'm talking about as far as the pitch of the mouthpiece, I'm referring to classical equipment. And it won't matter which brand of classical mouthpiece you're playing on, you should still be working towards this. Okay, so we need to try to find that A. And sometimes for some students, that can take 5 days, 10 days of just checking each day and experimenting a little bit. I would encourage you to not spend too much time on this each day. You will probably drive yourself crazy if you spend too long. So just a few minutes here and there. Once you can find that mouthpiece A, you want to work on just sustaining it, holding it nice and steadily. That's going to be your first step.